What's going on YouTube? In this episode, I'm going to share with you a little bit more about a phrase I keep seeing in the comments, and it doesn't surprise me, but it is a big fat lie. It's a gigantic lie, and in the phrase is multiple streams of passive income. It's a lie. Let's dive in. When I was my very first network marketing company I ever joined, the guy that was in my upline, 2 legs above me, he was like, I got all this passive income built up. And I was looking at what he was doing, and he was working 60 hours a week. He was constantly on call with his phone. You know, he was always just, I mean, the dude worked nonstop. And I kind of called him out on it. And I was like, there's nothing passive about what you're doing. He's like, well, it takes a lot of work and then you get to live off the back of it. And I was like, yeah, I get that. But this illusion of multiple streams of passive income is mostly a sales message. All right, now, my first multi-million-dollar webinar that I ever went and did about 10 years ago, that thing was as passive as you could ever have the true definition, but it still wasn't passive. I just hate the word passive. There's no such thing as passive income. What you want to think about is leveraged income, okay? That's completely different, and that's actually attainable. Automated is even a word that I don't necessarily love, because here's what happened. I went out and I put together my first webinar, the first one that took off, and it blew up and got really, really big. The first 6 months, I pretty much focused on just that webinar and nothing else. All right, I was like, I'm gonna do this webinar live. I'm gonna do it every week. I'm gonna continue to do it over and over and over again. Then I'll get it to a spot where it's automated. All right, so what I did is I did this webinar lots of times. I built a podcast up around it. I built up an email list from scratch. I didn't have a following, none of that stuff. And I was just making content and people were opting into stuff. And eventually I was like, hey, I had this cool offer, this cool product. You wanna come buy it? And that first 3 months, I generated about 150 grand from just organic traffic methods. And it's part of the reason why when people are like, oh, you gotta use ads, you do not have to use ads. Eventually you should. That's how you scale and keep something consistent. But that's not how you start. I never start with ads. About 3 months in, I generated this money. I was like, if I'm gonna be smart about this, I'm gonna take a chunk of this money and I'm gonna go dump it into ads. But I didn't know how to do that. And so I went and I found somebody who was good at running ads, and I said, I'll pay you to run these ads. And she did. She crushed it. For every dollar we put in ads, we were getting anywhere from $5 to $10 out for like the first several months. And then it went down to like $3 to $5, but still good, right? There's no investment in the world that does that, right? Just why it's such a fun game to play. Even as a network marketer, I have a whole YouTube video on how to run ads as a network marketer. There's this big false belief that you can't. Yes, you can, because I do. And we have for 10 years. So this whole concept of passive income, there's no such thing as passive income anywhere, ever. Everything requires maintenance. And so what I do whenever I'm going out and I'm building something is I'm thinking of all my projects in 2 phases. Phase 1 is the build phase. And to even think about passive or automated income is kind of a distraction. I'm not even in that phase. Right? I'm in the build mode. And that's kind of what this guy was doing who was in my upline, is he was in build mode. He was working 60 hours a week, building up a downline, getting the sales going, and I get that. But how he was doing it was like, I don't grow my own downlines like that. Think of this game more like you have 2 phases. First, there's the build phase, and then there's the automate phase. But the thing is that both still require management. Even if you're not the one managing it, you still have to bring somebody in to manage it. It's the same thing with real estate, right? You go buy a house that I'm driving by right now. If I was to buy that house right there, right? And I'm like, it's passive income. No, it's not. I still have to there's still maintenance. Someone still has to keep up to date on taxes and fees and HOA stuff, right? There's no such thing as passive income ever, at all, right? So what you have is leveraged income. And you might be like, oh, Steve, you're diving into the weeds here. That's semantics. It's not semantics. I find so many people in the network marketing space who get so distracted by and allured by the concept of passive income that they forget, first of all, that there's a whole phase they got to get through before they can even think about automated or leveraged income. And the second thing is that they believe that's what they're building when that's not it's a target you can't even hit. There's no such thing as passive income. And then when people get so, it's that super sexy sales message that people say to get people in the network marketing, you want multiple streams of passive income. It's like, all right, I get the sentiment. but we're also saying something that isn't even hittable in the first place. It's kind of like that webinar I went out, I pretty much did nothing else except that webinar for like 3 to 6 months. It's really the first 3 months was build, test, tweak the messaging, tweak the copy, tweak fulfillment, make sure it's, doing everything that people need for delivery and all that. But then you go into the next phase, which is the automate phase. And automation is not as simple as just pressing a button, automate, boop. It's not. I was hired to be the fractional CMO of a multi-$100 million company about 2 years ago. And I would get into fights with some of the executive team about this. They would say like, well, we went and we launched the funnel. We went and we launched the, this internet asset, just automate it, turn it on and automate it. And I'm like, that's as big of a checklist as the build checklist, right? There's a lot to do. And so the reason I'm making this episode right here, I'm literally responding to your guys' comments about this, about passive income, multiple streams of passive. It's just a phrase I know that we all hear a million times. It's a sales pitch that's as old as time and is not accurate in the first place. You can't even hit that mark, right? It's a completely wrong expectation. So what I find happens is the reason network marketers burn out, they have incorrect expectations about what network marketing is. They have incorrect expectations about what passive income and multiple streams even means. And they have no idea how to do it. They think it's the equivalent of pressing a button. I automated it, right? Now I have passive income coming on in. You still have to maintain those sales though, right? For example, affiliate marketing. I love affiliate marketing. I've collected 7 figures in commissions with affiliate marketing. Affiliate marketing is awesome. But even if I sell products that give me that monthly drip of cash, which is the only type of product I affiliate for, so I can get the monthly drip of cash, to assume that it's always gonna be as high as it is really the beginning of the end of that stream of income. If I don't periodically step back in and maintain it, if I don't periodically step back in and drop a new angle or a new promotion, like with network marketing, if I don't periodically step back in and give people another reason to go promote that month or, or that year, or we've all heard of companies who eventually are no longer companies. So if you're gonna spend 10 years building up a downline, and there's absolutely the risk of a company turning around and being like, hey, we're just gonna go straight the affiliate model now, which we've been seeing companies do that, especially recently, right? Or, hey, we got in trouble with the law, or, hey, we've decided that that leg has our legal team, which they can totally do, and it's completely legal. I'm not saying it's ethical or moral, but it is legal for them to be like, I'm gonna just cut that entire leg, right? And we've all heard of those horror stories, and I'm not trying to scare anyone away from being in network marketing, just the brass tacks hard truth of what it means to have passive income, because there is no such thing as that. The best way to automate or create leveraged income, and I don't mean borrowing money, I know that's another phrase for borrowing money. I think of leverage in terms of systems, okay? And I've talked about this before on this channel, but I'm just gonna refresh it real quick here, okay? Because the way that you do the build phase really sets the tone for the automate phase. If you skip a lot of steps, let's say you're one of those snowflakes that just all of your friends and family wanted to join the downline, and all of your friends and family happen to be good at sales, and all of your friends and family actually produce revenue and are builders, you haven't actually solved the leads problem. And since you soaked up all the warm market, which market are your friends and family gonna pitch from? Most likely, it's not to say that all have the exact same friends. If you think about it, like the pool of people that your friends and family get to pull from is even smaller because you already pulled from them. So you didn't actually solve the leads issue. You didn't actually solve the consistent sales problem. You didn't actually solve consistent delivery and quality of delivery problem. And you definitely did not solve the key problem that literally brings recurring revenue in, which is the resell / upsell. Those are the 4 systems right there. And the way that you treat those and build those during the build phase absolutely sets the tone for what you can expect during the automate phase. And I do this with all companies, not just network marketing. Any company that hires me and brings me in, I dive straight into their lead system, and 10 times out of 10, they have a massive hole there. Okay, I've never found a company that doesn't. Someone was like, boop, that's it right there. And they're like, oh my gosh, that's why we're having a leads problem. I'm like, yeah, that is. All right, sales problem. If you are still the best salesperson for your downline, that's a problem. Or if you have to be involved in every sale, you definitely can't have multiple streams of passive income because you are the income machine. Does that make sense? You have to build a system. You have to build a machine that's not you. Same thing with delivery. If you got to jump on random calls just to save sales and keep people on, you are not ready to automate, much less have passive income. Same with resell and upsell. If you constantly, so that's the first thing to do. And if you're like, man, that really sucks, Steve. What's really nice about what I'm saying is that there's no more guesswork. Here's what I want you guys to all do. Down in the comments, and I used to do this with network marketing companies and downlines live. I've done it live several times. What we do is I have them literally just on a piece of paper across the top. I have them write the word leads, then sales, then delivery, and then resell/upsell. Those 4 right there, what I want you to do is I want you to score yourself. Don't try to give yourself high marks across the board. Be honest about it. In your leads column, score yourself 1 out of 3. Only give yourself a 3 if leads come in without any of your involvement, and enough leads. You're getting enough leads for your network marketing product and for recruiting without your personal involvement. Next, delivery, same thing. Only give yourself 3 being the highest, if things can sell without your direct involvement, and enough sales that you could retire off of it. Same thing with delivery. Only score yourself a 3 if you personally do not have to be involved with delivery of everything, of the product that they bought or training new downline people. And the same thing with resell and upsell. Only give yourself a 3 if you're able to continue to resell. The high stick rate, right? People stay subscribed for a long time without you swooping on in. Everyone who watches this, some of you guys are gonna be further along than others with that, but you gotta be really honest about it. So one of the things that gets hard about building a network marketing business is there's not a lot of answers on what I'm talking about. And so a lot of times like, man, what do I do to go build my network marketing income machine? How do I do that? What's the next step? Well, this is how I know. I go through, and I had a mentor that told me to do the exercise I just told you every quarter. Every 3 months, you sit down and you say, and you can do faster than that, what should I be working on for the next quarter? Leads, sales, delivery, resell, upsell. And what I do is I don't try to fix all of them at the same time. That's split focus, that's not focus. So then what I do is I just try to choose out of all of those, I try to figure out, hey, which of those 4 is the weakest link right now? And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna spend the next 1 to 3 months just focusing on that system. Does that make sense? So that when you actually get through the build phase and you're starting to score 3s, then you're ready to even begin the passive income phase. It's a totally different phase of business. I do the exact same thing in every company that I'm in and that I build. I'm always sitting down and I'm saying, hey, are we ready to automate this? I'm doing this right now in my real company. We had a leads and sales issue, and so I've just created a bunch of other things. And literally this morning, I got up really, really early to create more SOPs and training and frameworks for my internal sales team because we're getting called into the sale too much. And we identified that as a problem last month. And we're like, we got to go fix this. Why are we continuing? This is not a machine that can run without us yet. Therefore, why am I even attracted or seduced by this notion of passive, right? Which again, doesn't exist. So once you're through the lead, sales, delivery, resell, upsell phase, and things can 80% of the time run without you, you now enter a completely different phase of business, which is the management phase. That's really what passive is about. No such thing as passive, but what you're doing is you're becoming a manager. If you think about it, a business owner is not a business owner yet if they still are being pulled into one of those 4 systems. They don't own anything. At that point, the company still owns them. We do the same thing in network marketing where I'm gonna go build those out. And once I start going and I flip, now I have a foundation and I start being the owner. It doesn't own me anymore. And now I can actually go do passive income, so to speak. I'm hoping this helps a lot because what I find is that people are, I'm building multiple streams of passive income. And I'm like, first of all, hopefully not multiple. Do one at a time. Nothing, you can't climb 2 mountains at once. Just focus on one, right? And what are you focusing on that actually makes it happen? Those 4 systems. And then once they can 80, 90% run without you, now you are the owner of the systems. Now you are a business owner. What does a business owner actually own? Systems that produces a customer and resells. That's all. The late, great, amazing, oh my gosh, I see his face in my head. I can't remember his name. He says though that he has this awesome quote that says, because the purpose of business is to create a customer, that's the first line of the quote. because the purpose of business is to create a customer. The purpose of business is not actually for you to go do anything other than create a customer. If the purpose of business is to create a customer, but you still get called into every stage of their experience of those four stages, you don't own anything, right? And you definitely don't own your downline. You never will, because it's network marketing. You're in commission-based sales, basically, right? Multi-tiered commission-based sales. That's all network marketing is. Affiliate marketing, no different. Honestly, all business, it's still the same four things. My mastermind and my consulting practice called Titans of Industry is for people who've crossed 7 figures, and this is what we help them install, is we help them survive the transition as quickly as possible between being an entrepreneur and an actual business owner. Because they don't own anything. They think they do just because their name's on the LLC or whatever, right? That's just not true, right? A lot of entrepreneurs that come to me, they either have a leads problem, a sale, it's one of those 4 problems, or they're just freaking exhausted. But all of it always comes back to the fact that it's those 4. Well, you're exhausted because you keep getting pulled into the leads phase. You're exhausted because you keep getting pulled into the sales phase, and so forth. So let me know down below kind of where you score on these things. How strong is your lead system for network marketing, both for recruiting and product sales? How well can you sell and close those leads without your involvement for recruiting and product sales? So I have, especially network marketing, it's one of those cases where I have 2 sets of those scores. I have 1 set of scores for how well I sell, get leads, sell, deliver, resell, upsell for the product, and then 1 for actually recruiting, right? And until I have those in place, don't get seduced by this notion of passive income, because it doesn't exist in the first place. And if you really skip those 4 at the beginning, you're not ever gonna have passive income from network marketing. What's gonna happen is you'll go take 6 months off, and then you'll start to, I got my first month with a little bit less sales. This is the first month where I said no to a bunch of phone calls to keep the sales team and my people in my downline motivated and moving. It's just a big world of uh-ohs that start. This is really key to understand, and why so many people end up washing out of network marketing as a whole. So that's my challenge to you. Put in the comments down below if you wouldn't mind. Write down below, where do you actually fit in those 4? What's your ranking? What's your score in each of those? Now you know what to work on. And you just kind of keep systematically doing that. And I would even recommend that you fix 1 per month. Okay, I've just noticed for me personally, and just after doing this for 11 years, that if I try to go fix too many systems at once, none of them really get like that icing on the cake, extra energy that really makes something work in the first place. So just do 1 at a time, and just do 1 per month. In 4 months, I could actually have a system. I could have a business at that point, even though it's not a business. But I have all the business systems in place where I can now sit back and say, all right, now because these are running, how do I actually go into the management part? Maybe we should do another video on that. Let me know if you want it. What do you do to actually manage the downline? There's a whole part of my program that goes into that piece, because it's not automated in the sense that you just get to walk away. Right? That's not true at all. But you could hire a manager. You could find someone in the best case scenario for people in network marketing is that they find someone in their downline that really gets this. And now you really have duplication. Don't ever try to duplicate a person. You can't duplicate people. That's the other nefarious phrase I keep hearing from network marketers. Duplication, duplication, duplication. Like, stop trying to duplicate people. There's only one of you. What you can duplicate is a system, though. And so when you get really good at figuring out those 4 systems that keep those things coming in for you, and recruiting and selling product, what are you duplicating? Those 4 things. Because if I can do that, now I actually can step into the management phase. That's really where you start building other business muscles, if you will. Right? You should probably still have some form of a meeting at a minimum once a month, but I find that it needs to be weekly. Just a 1 hour, no longer, 1 hour meeting each week, helping those below you, right, all together on one call at the same time, helping those below you continue to replicate the 4 systems that you created, right? That's still management. You turn into a trainer at that point. But I just find people try to be a trainer for something they haven't mastered in the first place, and that's why it's a mirage. It's a facade. Anyway, not to bust your bubble, but that's how you do it also. So hopefully that's the good news of this video. I'm not trying to smash hopes and dreams here, but that's just that's the way that you do it, and continue to maintain the thing. So you notice those who still make the most money, even though they have tons of, like, there's one lady that I worked with, she had 5 million people in her downline. 5 million. And I won't tell you the company. Y'all know it. Very, very big person, but she still was involved. And that's my point, right? And that wasn't wrong. I'm just trying to illustrate that even the notion of passive income, like that doesn't mean hands off. And unless you know what that actually does mean, then you're actually chasing a mirage. All right. Let me know what your score is down below, and please, for the love, every time I turn on my camera to start shooting one of these, I did right before this video, I look through your comments on this channel to see what I can be doing and creating that helps the most. Please tell me what problems you're running into. Please tell me what questions that you have, because I want this is our channel, not mine, and I want you to dump in anything that you're running into, because I'd love to just keep sharing with it. My evil plan is that at some point you're like, oh, this is this free stuff. I wonder how good his paid stuff is. So that's kind of what I'm doing here as well. But until then, it is your channel and I am here to serve. So let me know in the comments what you're struggling with. Subscribe, share this, like it, or whatever, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.